I have to start with your fantastic comedy work here. I feel like you genuinely look for the comedy in every moment, whether it's what characters are doing in the background, especially one bathroom sequence, and pretty much everything the cousins do. And then along with like how the actors have this capacity to like take a simple line on paper, but deliver it in such a way that makes it land with more impact. Could you give me some insight into your process of finding all that comedy in scenes, and how do you keep it all so tonally even without tipping?
Well, thank you. What a nice thing to say. I mean, for me, I've had mostly my career's done a lot of serious movies, but I like to laugh, so I always try to sneak comedy in, even into 13, even where I
Yeah.
could in Lords of Dogtown. So for me, having the chance to just get to have fun, like how can I keep elevating the comedy, even from the script? We did a table read. I had some very funny friends of mine. We challenged every line. Is that expected? How can we make it more unexpected? What can we do? And then I used to be a production designer, so I would
Mhm.
always try to add like my own little jokes and things in the background. So I tried to do that. I think you're talking about the guys in the background in the
Yeah.
bathroom on the limoncello scene, which was my favorite thing, like to have these two guys back there sawing away, pulling out a foot. And I just love movies that have those different layers, that you
Yeah.
can watch it again or just watch that detail in the background and it adds another level because, she's talking about the other family is so brutal. Meanwhile, our family is like sawing off feet, adding
Yeah.
another layer of irony to it.
A lot of that kind of comes through some of the reactions that the characters have. Like I mentioned the cousins. There's one interaction before that sequence that you're referring to where there's just opposing sides, like their men like against the wall, and they're reacting to what conversations being had in
Yes.
the foreground. And I'm just laughing at like they're kind of like eye rolling or like just these and I'm curious about homing in on some of those reactions, like knowing when to focus on the comedy that's happening in the front versus that reaction was really good. A reaction would actually make this even better.
Right, and that's a delicate balance because some of those bodyguards on both sides were so funny you could almost do a movie just between the two of them.
Yeah.
Two of them were very real. We later found out they were maybe a bit more dangerous than we realized, and so but they just had such interesting looks, all of them. So of course you're doing your takes where you're in the wide shot, and then you realize how funny. Okay, we got to get singles on these guys. In the editing room, you're just kind of balancing it, like
Yeah.
what works. Yeah.
Probably my favorite moment in the film is this interaction between Kristen and Bianca, where Bianca says something along the lines of maybe it's not losing yourself, maybe it's becoming yourself, which is a
Yes.
great response to Kristen kind of having this fear of who she's becoming and leaving behind her quote boring life. I'm curious about the projects that you have made that most made you feel like you were becoming yourself and you feel like you were meant to be a storyteller, because I certainly would say so on the viewing side of that.
Oh, thank you. Well, I mean, my first movie, 13, I kind of lived that with Nikki and her family. So I just felt compelled. I've got to make this. I've got to show the world what young women and their moms are going through and all the pressures and how it shapes a person's life. And so being able to tell that story was really important to me. And then if I skip, of course, Twilight, I loved the idea of just taking you into this ecstatic feeling of that first time you have a crush on somebody, where you're
Mhm.
just madly in love with somebody. How can I do that cinematically? Like it felt like in the book for people, how can I take you back to like day one,
Yeah.
butterflies and swoons? And then this one, I felt becoming myself too, because I got to just add every joke I could think of,
Yeah.
every strange little detail in the background, work with actors that I could encourage to improv a little. Like I could just throw a line to, Bianca and say, maybe you actually had a relationship with this guy that just died.
Mm.
I just came up with that on the spot. And she's like, oh, ciao, Carlito, and she just rolled with it,
Yeah.
And then Eduardo Scarpetta, the cousin, that's such, the evil, sort of evil one, when he jumps on the day bed with her, be the leopard,
Yeah.
That was just some crazy stuff he came up with, like, yeah, let's put it in.
Yeah, well, I loved it. It was interesting when you were talking about, 13, motherhood, and Twilight with like love, first love specifically. And we kind of see some of those themes carry across here with like, I love, especially motherhood. I love that the power of motherhood kind of brought a new flavor to a lot of these iconic moments that we recognize in mafia or gangster mob related films. Like we know to look for the shootout. We know like there's going to be a big confrontation at the end. And then it's like the power of motherhood was the thing that made it feel so fresh and exciting and made me feel kind of like romantic about what was going on because I have a son and I love that the relationship that my wife has with our son. And so I felt a lot for that. So I'm curious about like kind of taking those ingredients and making them your own and making these new creations out of them.
That's very cool because the fact that Kristen has been a mother, her son is now going to college, but she's really been a caretaker for him, and her husband's kind of like a man-child too. So
Yeah.
she's been motherly and really, nurturing everybody. She continues, even though she takes over this crime family, she continues to nurture. She's even trying to find ways to give, make drugs that the elderly community can't afford, get them to them at reasonable prices. She kind of transforms the crime family from within. So I think her instincts, and even at the end, of course, she's still mothering her kid.
Yeah, yeah. I know we're just about out of time, and I wanted to wrap up by asking about what do you think Elizabeth Gilbert and Francis Ford Coppola would have to say about this film if you had the opportunity to watch it with them? Would you enjoy that experience? Would you take anything out of it? Would you be curious to get their thoughts on certain aspects of it to see if they could recognize the humor and the brilliance of the work that they've done?
I think that I would love to do that. I've met Francis Ford Coppola, been on panels with him many times. I know he would get a kick out of it. I think he would have a blast. I've never met Elizabeth Gilbert, but I think, we obviously love both of those movies a lot, so we tried to pay homage, a tribute to them. Yeah, that'd be fun. Let's do a panel like that.
Yeah, but Sophia needs to be there because of her lines about Elizabeth Gilbert, and even the sequence where they get to where they are, and she shouts a certain word that echoes, like just, oh my God, it was so good.
Sophia is hysterical. She really blows a breath of fresh air every time she pops on that screen, don't you think? And you've seen her in Lord of the Rings, right?
Yes, she's fantastic in that
She's
too.
so different, right?
Yeah,
I'm happy for everybody to see this other side of her. Yeah.
yeah, me too. And by the way, that wine was great. They shipped it out to us, and it was quite great. My wife loved it.
Oh, cool. Did you have the severed finger in there? No.
No, thankfully not. But the pictures are great. So,
Oh,
all
thanks.
right.
That's so fun. I love all your questions. Very different. Yeah.